right. So, quick explanation of this assignment. So, in this week's folder, you'll see the Atom Timeline project. And you're going to click on the atomic model, and it's going to give you a Google Sheet or Google Slides outline that I want you to fix. So you were assigned a scientist name. So you're going to change this to your scientist name and then include your name, like who's in your group, like 1, 2, 3 people, whoever it is. Make sure you don't just directly cut and paste stuff from the web. That is illegal. It's called plagiarism. Make sure that you summarize stuff and put it in your own words. Second slide should just say like, hey, my scientist is this person and here's where they lived and when they lived and any interesting stuff. If you run across any fun facts about your person, you should stick them in here. Now, your person did not develop this idea on their own. There was probably a previous model. So let's see here we go. So here's the list of people from Democritus to Dalton to Curie all the way through Chadwick. And so let's say your person is Niels Bohr. You would go back to Rutherford and you'd do a little bit of research on Rutherford and say like, oh, this is what Rutherford thought and here's how Bohr changed it. Okay, so here's the list of people. You find your person and then you go back a person or maybe back 2 people to figure out what things were like. Okay, so you're going to describe the model that your person basically destroyed. Your person is going to come along and say, hey, you know that model? It's not so great. I'm going to fix it. So they may not blow up the whole model. They may just add pieces to it. They may say, hey, that's a really good idea. I'm going to add this little tweak. Okay, so whatever the previous model was, you have to say, like, this is what it was, and this is why it needed fixing. Your person may have done a famous experiment or discovered something like super famous. So if your person discovered a proton, you should say that. If your person didn't discover anything, then you just say, nah, they didn't discover anything. But they probably did an experiment, so you want to say like, oh, here's a picture of the equipment they used. Like go on Google, find what they used. Try and describe like how this person figured it out. And then like just come up with some pictures or brief things. Then there's this slide for your scientist's model. So like there was a model before, your scientist says, hey, I have this new idea, probably comes up with a new picture for what an atom looks like. So include that picture, like cut and paste a picture out of Google. If your scientist does not come up with anything radically new, then like include a picture of the thing that they slightly improved and say, hey, see this picture? Like their job was to like add this extra piece. And then finally, what are the resources? So like if you use Yahoo, like say that I use, like just cut and paste the URL in here and say I use this. ChatGPT, like then you should, if you ChatGPT stuff, then you should say I use ChatGPT and then here's the question that I asked it. So that way people can reproduce like what you did. Okay, so to give you an idea, here's what I did with it. So I'm going to do the very first person who was Democritus. He was the very first person to make an atomic model. Democritus was a Greek guy who lived around 400 BCE, so 400 years before the Common Era. He had a mentor named Leucippus, and he is considered the father of modern science. He believed that there were an infinite number of atoms in the universe. He was super rich, and he was not a friend of Plato. So if you know anything about Plato, he and Democritus did not get along. Democritus did not have a previous model. He was the first person to like actually record his idea about what atoms look like. So I can't have anything on this slide because there is no model. Right? If you do the person after Democritus, then you're going to insert what Democritus said. All right. So what did Democritus say? He said, oh, sorry. His experimental design. That's the next one. So, oops, come back. Democritus didn't actually do an experiment. Science wasn't really a thing back then. So he did some thinking, essentially. And he said to himself, like, hey, what is it that makes up every single object? So what he decided was that if you break objects, you get smaller pieces. And if you break that smaller piece, you'll get an even smaller piece. And if you keep breaking those pieces, eventually you will get down to a piece that he called the atom that makes up every single material. Okay, so Democritus imagined that everything was made up of solid spheres. So he said that basically atoms look like circles. There are no parts, it was just a circle. And that if you have different materials, the circles themselves are different. So a paper is made out of paper circles, and concrete is made out of concrete circles. Now today we know that's not true, but that's what Democritus thought. Where did I get this information? I was on Wikipedia. This comes from the University of Texas, I believe, and this website is called ancient.eu. So I just listed my sources. So what I want you to do is take those generic slides that I'm giving you and like make them look nice and add the stuff. Make sense? All right. Good luck, everybody.